days to come, because they will not be easy. There are people among us today who might not be with us next year at this conference. And this is the reality. Because the liberation struggle requires sacrifice, and I know everyone here is prepared to make that sacrifice.
When I think about the USM, it should burn! Death to America!
I support Hamas! I am Hamas! We are Hamas! Yes, we're all Hamas, pig! Empire will fall! 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 Empire will fall!
Greetings, conversationalists from across the fruited plain. This is the MAGA Kingdom Report for April 21st, 2025, show number 16, reminding you that East is East and West is West, and never the twain shall meet, as stated by Rudyard Kipling. I'm joined today with my host, Anastasia Theodopoulos and Dr. Richard Panzer. On today's show, we're going to talk about Trump on Islam. Does Islam hate non-Muslims? For the sake of Allah, radical Islamic compounds in the United States, man converts to Islam, plots to murder. Takeover of Grand Central Station in New York City, an act of worship. Muslim plans to blow themselves up in France. Afghan migrant brutally kills innocent Frenchman. Child beheaders in training. The fall of Europe and America. Palestinian diaspora in North America. What does that mean? Islamic terrorists with nukes. The treatment of Muslim women. Scripture of the week. And then a beautiful music video by Ray Charles, America the Beautiful. So guys, this is a special program that we're going to focus on today. Who wants to lead it off?
Okay, as I was saying, I have very mixed feelings about doing this show, and I'm just kind of wondering, should we dip our toe into the water or not on this issue? And unfortunately, I think we have to. Look, I had a dear friend, Imam Saladin, who lived in Paterson, New Jersey. He was on my board of directors for a nonprofit that I started. I love him. He passed on already. Wonderful person. But there's a reality that we have to deal with. And
Yes.
Which is, there are adherents of the Islamic faith who take the words of the Quran literally, which say things like, the day of judgment will not come about until Muslims fight the Jews, killing the Jews, when the Jew will hide behind stones and trees. The stones and trees will say, "O Muslims, O Abdullah, there's a Jew behind me, come and kill him." That's in Article 7 of Hamas's founding charter. And they're quoting from the Quran, from chapter 9 of the Quran. So, and it's not just Jews, it's also Christians.
Infidels, anyone that's
Exactly.
agnostics, atheists.
And there are Muslims who would rather not be in a state of war with non-Muslims, but they unfortunately are seen as apostates. Who are not adhering to the strict interpretation of Islam.
Hardline radicals.
And they can be killed too.
Right.
Actually.
So I think the question we have to ask ourselves is Hamas evil? Is it throughout the world, like in Europe? What has happened since they've been there? And is it in America? And I think it's very normal for us to ask that question, particularly since our own president is asking that question. Let's take a quick look.
All right, take a look.
Do you think Islam is at war with the West?
I think Islam hates us. There's something there that there's a tremendous hatred there. There's a tremendous hatred. We have to get to the bottom of it. There is an unbelievable hatred of us.
In Islam itself?
You're going to have to figure that out, okay? You'll get another Pulitzer, right? But you're going to have to figure that out. But there is a tremendous hatred, and we have to be very vigilant. We have to be very careful, and we can't allow people coming into this country who have this hatred of the United States.
I guess the question is,
and of people that are not Muslim.
I guess the question is there war between the West and radical Islam, or is there war between the West and Islam
It's
itself?
radical, but it's very hard to define. It's very hard to separate because you don't know who's who.
You know, it's very interesting because President Trump has always been a man who speaks very directly.
Openly. Yep.
Yep, whether you're the good, the bad, the ugly.
Right.
And the reality is that he recognizes, and he knows a lot more than we do, as far as what's going on.
Good point. He has the intel. We don't. We just see the headlines of what's going on.
Right.
And we're seeing this now, particularly in our universities, against the Jews.
Right.
Okay, the non-Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that, Richard?
Well, look, there's two sides to this. You know, the Americans, we see, look, when we see someone being murdered or God forbid, beheaded, which we're not going to show that, but we'll show young
do have
children
clips.
being trained
Right.
to do this and to want to do this.
Evidence.
But there's an ideology that is being spread in certain mosques, obviously in Europe and also here in the United States. John Guandolo, who spoke at the Freedom Festival several times,
Right.
he's written about this issue. There's an ideology of Islamism, and there are people who are serious to practice it. And I think we need to kind of wrap our head around this. I think there are some Muslims who would like to make a change and live in the modern world, but I think in many cases they're afraid. They're afraid to speak out because those who do speak out sometimes they are executed as well.
Especially the women.
Yeah,
The women
I think
don't
what-
have a voice.
I think what Rich says is true because, you know, with this tremendous migration in influx, right? And the way they act and behave overseas, I've truly expected a lot more violence, a lot more acting out, but it's not happening because perhaps when they come to America, it's that the system is so good and we have such an enjoyable life here, or they are plotting underground and they have cooled down their assaults and they're just waiting to take over America by our institutions because freedom of speech, these guys are assembling and they're telling you exactly what they're going to do, recorded on video in America.
So
we know this.
From my research, Richard, my understanding is that there are basically 3 phases of Muslim immigration. Phase 1 is they come in few numbers, oppressed from Islam. They play the victim. They claim Islamophobia and that they're more tolerant of others. Phase 2 is, now they're becoming more emboldened, is they become a large minority, and you see this in certain areas of this country already. Indignant Islam. They become threatening, demand Sharia law, which is very dangerous. Goes against our constitutional rights.
Exactly.
And they're intolerant of infidels, that's us folks. Phase 3, which is the last phase, is to be the clear majority, be dominant of Islam, be militant, strict Sharia law, to kill and subdue all infidels. Now, how do we know that these 3 steps are factual? Because this has been the history of the last 1,400
Right,
years.
since 1095 AD.
And it is the pattern that has not changed when you have these Muslim groups taking over in other countries. Where am I wrong?
Well,
UK, Sweden,
I mean,
it's
if you
over.
go to France in particular, there's a huge problem there. They took in, I don't know the exact number, millions have migrated from North Africa, Middle East. Now, to be fair, the West funded wars against Assad in Syria. The USAID
USAID.
spent $18.5 billion
Your tax dollars.
on Islamic terrorist states over those 5 years. A lot of it went to areas controlled by terrorists, and they wanted to overthrow, starting, I believe, with President Obama. They want to overthrow Assad, which they finally did, right? A few months ago. And
Yep.
so you had millions of people, fleeing war, basically coming into Europe and also to the United States. And probably there are a lot of, people just wanted a better life, but mixed in are people who are serious about
the
this
adherents.
agenda.
Yes, the adherents. And remember, it's a domino theory. Libya, Gaddafi, Hillary Clinton, Benghazi. So they move from one country to the next. It's very, and those poor people in Syria, right? The Christians, the Alawites, they're now being murdered. I was going to say prosecuted and persecuted, but the word is murdered by the radical jihadis.
So let's take a look at some facts and some video of what they actually think of us, because I think the folks will find this very interesting.
I hate you for the sake of Allah. You hate me for the sake of Allah. I hate you for the sake of Allah. All right. I hate you for the sake of Allah. Every Christian, I hate you all for the sake of Allah. Any Jew, any Christian, I hate you all for the sake of Allah. He hates me for the sake of Allah. You hate these bastards and the other bastards as well. Would you kill me if you get a chance? If we're in war, I would chop your head off. Yeah, Allah guides you. If we're fighting in war, am I supposed to let him kill me? I said, if we are. No, let's ask this again. Do you hate me? Yes, I hate you for the sake of Allah. Who taught you to hate me? Islam did.
All right, that is a little bit scary, I would say. And obviously you have somebody who has migrated to London, who has not been assimilated. And you have the practice of multiculturalism, which is we invite immigrants from other countries to come into our nation. They do not have to assimilate
Don't have to work.
to the British values, and they are allowed to live separate from the other communities, right. and they're allowed to practice their culture, which normally is fine, right? I mean,
we are the melting pot,
right? Diverse cultures,
if they're compatible.
But there's
assimilation.
There's an ideology of hatred for non-Muslims that is pretty evident in the video clip.
Well, they're over in the UK, they do not have the United States Constitution. And under our Constitution, the Muslim can be represented. But under the, what's the word for that political system that the Muslim faith has? It's under the Quran, right? The Quran is a complete political system, complete with taxes and judges. So it's more than simply, following the teachings of Christianity. This is complete with penalties and a full political system. So when you find an adherent like that, it's hard for them to come over and, be in a country and not be what they've trained and taught forever. So it's East versus West.
Right. I mean, I think built into Christianity is the idea of religious freedom. Jesus did not kill people to convert them. Jesus actually gave his life to save people who didn't believe in him.
Kind of the opposite.
Right? Exact opposite. Muhammad he was a war leader. Okay, in the beginning in Mecca, he started out peaceful, and I think for more than 10 years, he was not successful in gaining converts.
Right, so
he went to Medina,
changed his strategy,
and he became a warlord, and he came back and conquered Mecca, personally oversaw the execution of between 600 to 800 Jewish men, and Islam spread, okay?
Yep.
They found a tactic that actually was very effective in spreading and taking control.
Sounds like Dr. Panzer knows his stuff here.
And how do we know that here in the United States we are in jeopardy? It seems that the FBI has uncovered radical Islamic compounds in Alabama that are actually training children for jihad. And they're linked to other states across the United States as well. Can we take a look at that?
Yes.
At first glance, it looks like an abandoned dump. But this plot of land in Macon County, Alabama is described in an FBI search warrant as a makeshift military-style obstacle course belonging to a small group of terrorists led by Siraj Wahaj, who owned the property. Up a long dirt road, but just a few miles from downtown Tuskegee, Alabama.
Just because you're in a small town or a small state does not mean you might not potentially have individuals engaged in the types of activities that would call into question threats to national security.
The property, similar to another compound in New Mexico, the group is now linked to, where federal prosecutors say Wahaj and these other 4 suspects were training children to carry out deadly terror attacks on American soil. Just in the last week, the FBI's Assistant Director for Counterterrorism told lawmakers here on Capitol Hill there are 850 domestic terrorism investigations opened right now, adding that about 40% of those are cases of racially motivated violent extremism.
The threat of domestic terrorism exists in every region of the United States and affects all walks of life.
In the Alabama case, the group may not have carried out an attack, but the remains of a child believed to belong to Wahaj, who he's charged with kidnapping, were also found on the property in New Mexico. For other small-town cases, the former head of the Mobile, Alabama FBI field office, Tim Furman, says the engaged citizen is often the best defense.
Sometimes if you see something, it isn't suspicious. It's someone exercising their First Amendment rights or living the way they do that you may not necessarily agree with, but does not pose a criminal or a national security threat. But sometimes they actually are.
I'm Christine Frizzell reporting.
I have a statement by John Quindolo, who did speak at the Freedom Festival.
Yep, he's an authority.
He wrote a report in August of 2024, the Hamas Muslim Brotherhood Network in the United States, and he makes 3 points. 1, there's a massive Islamic movement in the United States, primarily led by the Muslim Brotherhood, which seeks to overthrow the U.S. government and establish an Islamic state under Islamic law/Sharia. 2, the most prominent U.S. Islamic organizations and their leaders are part of this effort. 3, these organizations and their leaders are the exclusive advisors to federal and state agencies charged with protecting Americans and upholding the Constitution of the United States. So these organizations, the leaders of these organizations are often the advisors that the federal government and state governments go to for how to have good relationships with the Islamic community.
With the community. We're infiltrated. America is infiltrated. There's no doubt Hamas is here on your soil, and they're being treated differently than Americans because they're not being kicked out because of their violent tendencies and organization.
Okay, under Joe Biden, they let in tens of thousands of
the worst
of terrorists. Who often, there may be an immigration judge, and often those immigration judges were not informed that this individual has terrorist ties in the past. And the judge said, okay, let him go, let him come in. People are allowed to come into the United States with no vetting. Of course, they come from a country where there may be no birth records. Everyone has, very, very identical names. It's hard to track people from certain countries. And there are literally tens of thousands of people here in the United States who are allowed to come into our country under the Biden-Harris administration, and I'm hoping that ICE is arresting them as fast as possible.
Well, that's why I say, I expect a lot more violence, a lot more organization. It's probably happening right under our nose that we don't see. In fact, this report didn't mention the fact that in New York State, Islamabad, which is about 50 minutes or less from where we're at, there was the compound with live automatic weapons fire. They had women and children living on the compound, which was right outside of Narrowsburg, New York. It's where the Cannonville Reservoir is that supplies New York City. I mean, there's so many things. Does America need to be hit before they finally wake up? I mean, this is a threat.
Well, you bring up a good point, because locally we had heard about that story. Why wasn't that covered nationally? And notice that these radicals, when they come here to this country, they're always part of the Democratic Party. Gee, I wonder why. Maybe because they want to follow their own, religion,
It's a thinking,
which
it's a
is
mindset.
against the Constitution. There's no assimilation. That's a problem too. Every culture, every group of people that came to the United States always had a portion of assimilation. That's why we are the melting pot. We're not the mixed pot. We're the melting pot.
And that could be our downfall.
Well, you have to be able to be open and love your neighbor. And if you can't do that, in my opinion, you shouldn't have the right to be allowed to become a member of these United States.
But how do we tell? Well, when we're walking down the street and you see someone, you don't know, because further on in our program, you're going to see that it's not defined to color or origin. There's converts. So this is certainly something that's very dangerous, especially in a free constitutional republic, because you pretty much have the choice to. But one of the points is they let them all in. How is the American citizen supposed to say who they are? We don't know.
Here's the other thing. In the jails, you have
Right.
a portion
Oh,
of the
absolutely.
African Americans
Saw it
who
firsthand.
become Muslims.
Yep.
Okay, so they get converted in the jailhouses.
Absolutely.
Okay, there was a terrorist attack in New Orleans, I believe it was
Yeah,
around Christmas time.
Yep.
Or in January. And this converted, he's actually involved in the military. I remember
Yeah,
he
a
converted.
former U.S. military
I think he was
veteran.
from Houston. He went to
Yeah.
the mosque there, and then I believe he ran over and killed 6 or 8 people. I don't remember the exact number.
Yeah,
was
Nadal
shocking.
Hassan on Fort Hood. He was an active United States military that
doctor.
went
He was a
jihad. Dr. Nadal Hassan. So,
That's right.
yeah, it's look, there's crazies on
devious.
all sides and all religions, but it seems to be more prevalent. It seems to be a tie-in, a link, and a practice.
It seems to be very strategic to infiltrate our systems. And there's no greater love for your country than serving as an American. And to have someone betray this country in that way is very shocking, because I don't think we've really ever seen it like that.
Right. And I think the American people, generally speaking, most Americans are very tolerant. They don't want to be prejudiced against people from different countries.
Look at us.
And we shouldn't have to be. Why do we have to be vigilant? This is our country. We don't know who's coming in, and it's up to us to look at someone and say, good, bad? No, it's a failure of the United States government to allow this to flourish.
No, absolutely. Especially the last 4 years, there was zero effort. People could actually make an appointment to come into our country through an app.
With a
Through an
terrorist
app.
background.
There's no vetting
Right.
of who this person is, and they would have them fly into America.
So, Rich, you're saying the United States government knew who they were because when they register through this CBP1 app, right?
Right.
Well, they have some kind of idea, and they were never questioned and never stopped. They could have said, I am, who's the biggest king terrorist of 9/11, right?
Osama bin Laden.
Osama bin Laden. Hi, I'm Osama bin Laden. And guess what? That app would have said, okay, come on in.
Where
Because
would
nobody
you like to
cared.
go? Which city do
Right.
you want to go
Just-
to? Okay.
So-
It's crazy.
Here's the other thing. When the borders were taken down in Europe and the Muslims were flooded into the countries, the people had no vote. They weren't even asked. They were mostly against this because they understood that if you have a majority of people that are coming in who are not supportive of your lifestyle or your perspective of religion and how to live, that could be a problem, and they didn't care. So I would suggest, Richard, that this is probably, and Frank, a more of a globalist attack on the freedoms that we have inalienably the right to live. And I think that attack is now being broken down by the United States with the leadership of President Trump, who dared to ask that question at the top of the show.
Okay, well, there is the Red-Green Alliance, which is the alliance between leftists and radical Islam. They share something. I mean, they one is completely militantly atheist. The other one believes in Allah. But they share one thing in common: their hatred of America.
And Western
They
values.
want to take down the West. The West is too powerful, too prosperous, too free.
Good point.
We want to take them down.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Right. Now, of course, this happened in Iran, and the leftists and the Islamists worked together to take down the Shah of Iran. After Khomeini came in as the new leader, the leftists were wiped out. They were imprisoned and executed. But I'm just warning any leftists out there. Look at what happened when leftists partnered with Muslim radicals. It did not go well for the leftists. I'm just saying.
And that's a warning to America, because that's a microcosm. There were universities, there were girls in skirts, like before Iran, 1974, right? These guys were like, they had vacation spots, like they were a fully westernized culture, no hijabs, no headscarves. And 10 years later, those women are wrapped up in a burqa baggie. They beat by
can't
their
go to
husbands,
school.
like,
They can't get an education. They can't even show an ankle, because that means you want to get raped. And their rights are completely down the drain, and they are abused, which we're going to get into. But so let's see another example of what's going on in these United States, and particularly
special treatment
in New York City, of all places, and in the Grand Central Station. So evidently, there are terrorist supporters who halted the trains.
Amazing.
During rush hour, by the way. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take a look.
Basically, this should be a warning, I would say.
Rich, that's all you have is warnings. Rich is saying warning. Rich, who's letting this happen?
No, exactly. And we think... Anyway, we all believe in free speech.
But why is this happening in Democratic-run cities?
Well, here's the point.
Pattern.
The question is, did they get a permit to be there? Because I know, bringing it home to Scranton, you just can't assemble without a, quote, permit. So did these guys have a permit? And how are you allowed to stop working people that are coming home on a train, a public transit system? Like, you can assemble on a public sidewalk outside, but to take over the inside of a working building where you're impeding the taxpayers and workers of New York City? Who allowed this? Because obviously, if you and I went in there and started screaming and acting threatening like they
this
did,
was a pro-life.
You'd be arrested. You'd be pro-life. You'd be taken away. Why is this allowed
It
in
would
mass?
be take you away.
Yes, it's ridiculous. So, Rich, I hear your warning. I hope everybody else does.
I mean, we think that this is just an issue about like a two-state solution.
No.
That's not it.
No, it's world domination. It's the
They-
complete political system of the Quran. Oh, did I say that out loud?
Well, you know, Ayan Hirsi Ali has a whole lot
That's a
to
good
say. She is, wow, what a woman, and someone who's definitely been through her own private hell to get to the other side.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because in this video that we're going to show, she's saying how she was raised as a Muslim. She was a believing Muslim in Somalia, and she shares what she was taught from a young age
propaganda
to think about as a young Muslim.
Yes, let's take a look at that.
The worst insult in the Somali community was to be called a Jew. Not that any of us actually knew one. To be called a Jew was so abhorrent, some felt justified in killing anyone who's honored them with this slur. I vividly remember sitting with my female fellows in mosques, cursing Israel and praying Allah to destroy them. We were certainly not interested in a peaceful two-state solution. We were taught to want to see Israel wiped off the map. The elimination of Israel was not a matter of if, it was a matter of when. For us as Muslims, Israel did not represent a territorial dispute. To want Israel's destruction was an act of worship. To entertain notions of a two-state solution was an act of sin, a transgression, a betrayal of God, His Prophet, and the Ummah.
I mean, that is something else. It goes to the heart of what the issue is. And you're right, you can't have a two-state being the solution of separation. They want us dead. Right. They want the Jews dead, and they want all the infidels
It's
dead.
systematic. It is a movement. This is not, it's more than a religion, because religions, okay, you move out, and like Christianity, you converted, and granted they were not perfect, but we are not, they are exporting, right? From that hellhole Somalia, they are exporting this, it's a world domination. And Ali Hirsi, like Brigitte Gabriel, who was also brought up under that totalitarian system, speaks out and says, America, they're here, and they're active in your government. We have Muslim judges, we have Muslim Congress people in the legislature. So, you know, it's how far do we go, and where are the safeguards? But Ali Hirsi is telling you right there, right?
Now look,
pure anti-Semitism.
Okay, some people might say, well, that's just in Somalia. It's a very poor, backward country. But let me read to you. This is from the most widely used seventh grade textbook.
Saudi Arabia is pretty
rich. U.S. Islamic schools.
Oh, that's a good one.
Quote, "The duty of Muslim citizens is to be loyal to the Islamic State. If anyone dies in jihad, they are promised paradise." And that is being taught to seventh grade Islamic students in the United States.
Talk about indoctrination at the highest level. And you know, what fascinates me about these women, Frank, that you were just mentioning was, if they had an inkling of desire to speak like that in their homelands, these women would be rocked to death.
Where's the feminist now?
No, in Iran, you see these women who, you know, they're tired of this. They
try to go without the hijab?
More than 40 years of this Islamic tyranny. And there are women in Iran who say, I'm sick of this. They take off their hijab and they walk around dressed like an average European or American woman, and then
they're jailed. They are put in prison,
and they're not seen again.
If we know, you know what happens when they get put in prison, right? That it is a horror when that happens. But you know what? Hopefully, you know, that is a very repressive system. So the hope is, right, as you come to America, it's not happening in the UK, but as you come to America, you're able to speak out, and you're able to escape it. So hopefully they see the freedoms under this constitutional republic and say, okay, I can break away, and it doesn't become this huge problem for America, because they come over and they do somewhat assimilate. Now, I know there's no-go zones, especially where where
In Europe, you're talking about.
no, I'm talking about the U.S. There's places, they just wanted to have the big mosque in Texas. And the governor just said, no, you're not going to allow this super community. But it's a huge problem.
That's a great example, but I think in France is one of these countries that has seen absolutely blatant horror and murders. And I think Americans, we need to be able to kind of see this, because this is coming to a town near you if we aren't diligent and try to do something about this.
Dearbornistan, Michigan.
Okay.
Dearborn, Michigan.
All right, we have an article from, this is from jihadwatch.org, which has information about
Robert
this
Spencer.
topic. And we want to show you an article, France, 3 Muslims plan to blow themselves up in a public place to cause maximum casualties. This is from April 8th, 2025, about one week ago. And yeah, so it starts out a quote from the Quran, Surah 9. Indeed, Allah has brought from the believers their lives and their wealth, because the garden will be theirs. They will fight in the way of Allah and will kill and be killed. And then it reports suicide attack plot foiled in the north, 3 youths arrested. So there are young Muslim men, usually men, who believe that they'll go straight to paradise if they kill so-called infidels.
And themselves.
Yeah. And now Europe, I hate to say this, look, the ultimate solution to this, I believe, is a strong, vibrant Christian faith that would be so strong and attractive that we could help many Muslims to leave their faith, right? But in Europe, you have dying Christianity in most European countries, and you have Muslim conclaves where the Islamic faith is practiced, enforced, and the birth rate. Muslim women are having a lot of children. The European women can't be bothered to.
Yep, because they have a purpose.
To get pregnant.
It's a purpose.
Well, let's take this into consideration. They say the #1 most popular male name in the world is Muhammad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's domination through the womb.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the plan.
Yeah, they call Londonistan for a reason.
Londonistan, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
Mayor
so-
Khan, he's your Muslim mayor.
And I think there are Muslims who would like to, who see the value of a culture that's based on the teachings of Jesus Christ, and would like to go in that direction. But if they're outspoken, then they put themselves in danger too.
When you take the good parts of the religion, there's a lot of alignment between the Muslim and the Christian religion. But when you take the hardcore stand, that totally subverts and perverts what we're doing now. It's open conversation, freedom of opinion, freedom of discussion. You couldn't have this with a jihadi, because he would blow himself up at this point, right? Boom, pull the trigger, because he doesn't agree with what we're saying, and he's going to heaven. So there's no use talking, because what's going to happen? If you're in that vicinity with the bomb belt or bomb vest, you're going. So this is it's a quandary.
I think the folks need to see, because you're not going to see it on regular media, they need to see the horrors of how brutal that some of these folks are based on their beliefs.
On themselves, on their own community.
They will just pick on innocent bystanders and do the most horrific things.
Right, exactly.
So something happened with a Frenchman right outside McDonald's.
In French, il a tué quelqu'un means he has killed somebody, and then the next photo shows a dead Frenchman who happened to be at that McDonald's, who is bleeding to death. So that is a situation that takes place in many, actually,
where they're at.
Many European countries. They're dealing with this. especially in Germany, they felt guilty about what happened with Nazi Germany, and they said
white guilt.
And to repent, we need to accept large numbers of people from these Muslim countries, and they have a big problem.
So imagine a population, a country, a citizenry that thinks that way. That's not, and you know what? That's where America's headed. We no longer are the red-blooded, rugged Americans. We're like, oh, we need to be accepting and reparation, whatever else. Look, our forefathers fought and bled for this country, and they're not. It's crazy. Yeah. And here's another thing, right? It's an export. So if they really want to change their country, look, you have to stay in your country and you have to fight like we did and we do. You can't leave it, but they're not leaving it. They're bringing it and they're exporting it.
Okay, and I believe Ayaan Hirsi Ali actually had some other things to say. I hope we can get her to speak at the Freedom Festival.
Oh boy,
we're trying.
That'd be good.
Yeah, because
and Brigitte Gabriel.
Yeah,
Act for America.
Yeah.
Yeah, she can't make it this year, but we're hoping next year.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because Ayaan Hirsi Ali, she was a committed Muslim. She came, she emigrated. She escaped Somalia, or I think they may were living in Kenya. Her parents wanted her to marry an older cousin who was 40 years older than she was. She was in her 20s. She said, no, I don't want to do that. She escaped to Netherlands.
Thank God.
And she learned the Dutch language. She was elected to the parliament.
They tried to bring her back and imprison her and kill her, but
and so then she came to United. She made a movie together with a Dutch legislator about this problem. They murdered him, and they said to her, "You're next." So she came to America and was speaking out about the issue. She was basically an atheist. And then last year, she finally said, look, atheism doesn't work for me. I'm depressed, and I'm drinking too much alcohol. And she became a Christian now. And it's a really interesting story. But she has something important to say about Europe.
Yeah, let's take a look at that.
The fall of Europe. It's the fall of Europe. It's the fall of the United Kingdom is on the brink. The government of Sweden, the Prime Minister said a few weeks ago that he has lost control of the monopoly of violence, that his government has lost control of the monopoly of violence. He was very honest, but I think in many ways that's where Germany is at, where France is at, and those countries falling like domino effects, that is my nightmare. And they have done that through settlement, through infiltration in their institutions, including political parties, so that the government in office today, the Labour government, has done more to accommodate in the last 8 months than anything else. And that is my nightmare, that the West starts to fall apart.
She's talking about the government of Keir Starmer, the new Prime Minister of Great Britain. And he's a hardcore leftist, and he is working like this with the Islamists. And
he's a tool and a fool.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, selling out all their rights, because in the end, you know what you will be? You will be, there's a word for it, you will pay the jizya, because even though you don't convert, if you pay the tax, you're allowed to live in the Muslim society. So, you know, like I said, it's more than just a religion. It's a complete political system and movement.
And this is like a war we've never seen before, because this is an infiltration from within. This could be your neighbors. You can be outside of a McDonald's,
right, they're here,
and all of a sudden, boom, that's the last breath you take. And that's why we have to address this topic, and we have to, as Americans, understand what this means.
Let me ask you guys this. Okay, so when they act out, right, do you have a card, a lanyard around your neck that says, I'm not a Muslim, I'm a Christian? Like, when they did this to this person outside of McDonald's, how did they know he wasn't a Muslim? So does it matter? Is murder just not part of what, right? Well, how do you know?
Well,
Good point.
I guess they assumed that he was guilty, so...
So really, I guess what we're saying is, it doesn't matter if you're suspected of it, right? Due process, right? We're sending back illegal aliens, but, oh, stop, they gotta have due process. Where was that guy's due process before his throat was slit?
They don't care that
Oh,
who
they
you
don't
were,
have
if
due
you were a
process.
pastor, if you saved orphans.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
No
because
value.
You're an infidel.
No, in one French city, they cut the throat of the priest while he was doing the mass, okay, in the church.
Well, I guess he deserved that because he was a priest doing a mass.
Okay, we have a video of how they train their children, and we're not going to show the whole video, but let's watch.
It's pretty nasty.
Let's see what they're teaching their children.
This is tough, folks.
تعرف السخانة من بسوية تمام كساني آس كدر جنگ بر عليه دولة إسلامي شركة ومكاري میکنن وبإذن الله تعالى سرزمين وديارتان را بر سرتان ویران خواهیم کرد وأمنيتتان را بهم خواهیم زد وخونتان را جاری خواهیم کرد فزای مشركين أي إيران الصفوي بدانید که جنگ شما بر علیه مجاهدان هیچ نفعی برای شما نخواهد داشت در انتظار ما باشید شما و جاسوسانتان
They're training their children to think that their highest aspiration is not to become a doctor, lawyer, engineer, or scientist. It's to become a martyr who dies in the act of killing infidels. This is what they're teaching their children.
Spooky and dangerous, like just the chanting, just the background, the whole premise is like this isn't good for anybody.
What we couldn't show you is, this young boy can't be more than 10 years old.
Yeah.
Right.
And we've actually seen the live video.
The whole video.
It is an image you cannot take out of your mind, actually. It's so horrific. The way the child puts his fingers in the eyes and just slices the neck as if it was a pig.
Yeah.
And celebrating while doing this, that he's doing, what is he going to become a couple of years from now? He's already killing.
Yeah,
he's the guy with the bomb belt.
Right.
He's the guy with the
and
vest.
He's killing another Muslim who is accused of being
Well, yeah,
a
that's
spy.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
How do they, where's their due process, the justice system? They all cry about it. Guess what? When you import this, you'll have none of it. You'll be the victim.
Okay. Now, we may think, well, this is another foreign country. There's nothing to do with the United States. But I think we should watch the video of a conference that took place in May of 2024 in Detroit, Michigan, with a group called American Muslims for Palestine. Let's take a look.
Days to come, because they will not be easy. There are people among us today who might not be with us next year at this conference. And this is the reality. Because the liberation struggle requires sacrifice, and I know everyone here is prepared to make that sacrifice.
In May 2024, over 100 organizations gathered for the People's Conference for Palestine in Detroit, Michigan. More than 3,000 activists were in attendance. Speakers celebrated the October 7th massacre, called for resistance against the West, and mapped out a vision for the destruction of America from within.
The Palestinians who came to the United States understood their role immediately upon arrival.
We, the movement for Palestine in North America and across the world, are here to fight until victory.
This violent movement has been growing for decades. It's made up of groups including Within Our Lifetime, Students for Justice in Palestine, the Palestinian Youth Movement, and many others. After the October 7th attacks, anti-Israel groups in America were emboldened. They saw the massacre as an opportunity to intensify hostility toward Jews and America.
When I think about the USF, it should burn! Death to America!
As the movement worked nonstop to legitimize the Hamas attack, the activists openly flaunted their hatred of Jews and Israel through protests, vandalism, encampments, and violent assaults, both in the streets and on college campuses. Flags of terror organizations became commonplace in public spaces. Activists celebrated the brutality of the October 7th massacre, drawing inspiration from the barbaric acts of terrorism.
It was exhilarating. It was energizing.
Glory to our martyrs, our heroes who made the ultimate sacrifice.
I salute Hamas. A job well done.
On October 7th, Hamas declared war on Israel. On October 8th, their supporters declared war on America.
It is time to bring the war home! It is time to smash this empire!
The goal of the movement is not just to destroy Israel. Their primary target is the U.S. They call America the enemy, the beast, or simply empire.
We're in the belly of the beast. We are in the heart of U.S. empire.
We are here in the belly of the insatiable imperial beast.
Here in North America, in the U.S., the belly of the beast, the heart of empire.
We have to bring down this empire with 1 million cuts.
We will be hitting empire where it hurts most. Bring empire to its knees.
Dismantling the heart of empire is not easy, and it won't be rapid. But we know it's possible.
This panel, y'all, is talking about what is next. That's where I got that. To strike at the heart of empire.
The Palestinian American pro-terror movement uses the word resistance as a euphemism for violence. And that resistance is to be accomplished by any means necessary.
You will resist by any, all means necessary.
The resistance, in all its forms.
Resistance, including armed resistance.
Normalized armed struggle.
They're not terrorists, they're freedom fighters.
Our noble, steadfast resistance.
Conference speakers outlined their strategy for bringing the war home.
I believe our fundamental role is to generate political and social crisis within the American ruling class. Mass mobilizations is the primary tactic. Street shutdowns, bridge and train shutdowns, airport caravans and shutdowns, encampments, building takeovers, targeting of weapons manufacturers, shutting down events.
We will be here in the streets, on our campuses, in our classrooms, in our workplaces every day.
We have made the situation untenable for the empire's ruling classes and the political establishment.
They have created a disruptive movement made up of students and faculty, turning young minds into anti-American extremists.
Our movement has helped transform students into revolutionaries.
Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, and other factions that fight American hegemony in the region. People who are 18 and 19 years old on campuses truly understand these ideas now.
Protesters target cultural and historical landmarks, seeking to destabilize the foundations of American society. They are openly hostile to law enforcement and engage in violent opposition toward the police. The influence of these organizations isn't limited to universities and public spaces. They've even reached the halls of Congress.
Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib.
We're gonna move Congress, and we're gonna move the White House. We're not going anywhere. Free, free Palestine!
The influence of these violent groups is growing, and they are working towards their goal of dismantling America.
Our struggle is a long struggle, and one that stands on the shoulders of thousands of martyrs and thousands of fighters who have committed and who are committing their lives to lay the ground for the revolution we see ahead of us today.
Gaza tells us to escalate for it. That can mean so many different things, but what I will tell you is we need to start sacrificing.
The threat of violence is not theoretical. In this war of resistance, all Americans are potential targets. These organizations are determined to achieve their revolution, whatever the cost, by any means necessary.
Resistance, by any means necessary.
If the enemy refuses to die, it must be killed.
There is only one solution.
The Palestinian diaspora in North America has committed its martyrs for this cause.
Students have brought the war home.
It is either victory or death.
Either victory or death.
They're losing their ability to control us. And this means that now the gloves are off. And quite frankly, anything is possible.
I'm speechless. These people are saying some of us will not be here next year.
Yeah.
And because...
You know why that is?
Because...
They'll kill you and themselves together.
They're planning to mobilize.
For Allah.
Yeah.
You know, if look, they would have been a more peaceful mobilization if Kamala Harris had won, because they would have been inside the government. But now that Trump has won, what do we expect? He said you won't be here with us next year because they're going to get more radical, more violent. So the people that don't want to be violent will not be there. But that 3% is going to what? Could possibly cause havoc in 2025 and beyond. So that's it. They're in America, 100 groups. They're ready to roll.
I mean, hopefully ICE is arresting immigrants. But I believe many of the people at this conference were not immigrants. Many of these people were Americans, naturalized citizens, or born in America.
Marxists.
And they want to take down, look, Israel is the little Satan, and America is called the big Satan, and they want to take it down. And
I think it's also important to look at the family, because, you know, I ask myself, for example, if you're that evil as a man, how do you treat your wife? What happens to your children?
Right.
Richard, what do you have for us on that topic?
Well, I think we have a video which shows a man disciplining his wife. Just put it that way.
Let's take a look at that. This is inhumane. This child, you know, what kills me is the children in that. because that daughter was so devastated, and she didn't look like she was more than 8 years old.
It's an accepted practice in that
see
religion.
her mother being abused
you
like
need
that.
if you want to make an accusation that that guy beat you or raped you, you need 2 men to testify, to come up and say, hey, this guy did it. And you know, you're not going to find 2 men. So this is prevalent. And is a burqa used to hide the obvious? This woman's going to have black. That guy was landing punches. She's going to have black and blue. Is this a reason for
And
a
in their
burqa?
governance, where's the police?
Yeah, well, it's accepted.
Okay, now, just to be fair, there are so-called Christian men who abuse their wives.
But you see it because they got black eyes.
They're not endorsed by their religious teaching to do that.
Yep.
And there are Muslim imams who actually teach. You can find videos on the internet of
How to discipline
Muslim
a woman.
clerics teaching you how to beat your wife without violating Islamic law.
Honor murders, honor killing, because you
We've had
the
those in
family name.
Texas.
Yeah.
Yes.
Honor killings. So her
Yeah.
father killed his daughter because she was a little bit too westernized.
Right.
Too much
exactly.
makeup.
Yeah. Yes. Well, okay. Going back to I think we're going to finish
The
with,
world threat.
with an article by Sam Faddis, who is ex-CIA and writes really important work. And
And a good friend.
And a good
Friend
friend.
of the show.
And on Freedom Festival.
And this article is titled, "Imagine a World Where Islamic Terrorists Have Nuclear Weapons." The focus right now is on talks with Iran and the Iranian nuclear program. That makes sense. We are on the brink of seeing Iran go nuclear and the entire Middle East go up in flames. There is another grave danger getting much less attention, however. The possibility that Islamic terrorists may acquire nuclear weapons. And then he has a video here, which we can play, I guess. When Joe abandoned Afghanistan to its fate, the American people were told that there would be no serious repercussions for their security. The Afghans might be abandoned to the tender mercies of 6th century barbarians, but we would be just fine. This was, like most things we were told by Biden and his minions, a lie. The men who rule Afghanistan now have no intention of living in peace and minding their own business. They are in the business of jihad. They're in the business of world domination. The immediate target for them is Pakistan. They seek to overthrow the government in Islamabad. They seek to take control of one of the world's largest nuclear arsenals. They're making serious progress toward that goal. Throughout the regions of Pakistan bordering Afghanistan, Pakistani Taliban militants are attacking installations of the Pakistani security services. They are aided and abetted in their efforts by both the Afghan Taliban and Al-Qaeda, which is embedded in the Kabul government and operating camps throughout Afghanistan. The TTP, which is the Pakistani Taliban militants, routinely threatens to bring the war to Pakistan's capital, Islamabad. And then he has a quote, "The United States advised its citizens on Wednesday to steer clear of a popular mosque in Pakistan's capital due to potential terrorist threats." So the Westerners are being warned away from this major tourist destination, the Faisal Mosque. And the video showed the individuals displaying a hand-drawn pamphlet featuring the flag of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan group, which the United States has listed as a global terrorist organization. The video was shared on Monday via social media affiliated with the TTP. So they're proud of this. They're openly declaring their intention.
Yeah.
And Pakistan has at least more than 50 nukes, I believe. And this is there are other videos that we could show, but I think you get the point.
This topic is so big, folks. I think we just cracked the nut right now.
Yeah.
There's so much more that has to be covered. I think Richard, Frank, I think we need to be on top of this and cover periodically to the folks. You're not going to see this in the media, in your average media, but the story has to be told because you don't want to be the next victim. And it also brings us to the reason I think why they hate the infidels, especially the Christians and the Jews. And our scripture of the week is from Proverbs 8:13. The fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride, and arrogance, and the evil way and the fraudulent mouth do I hate. And that's why we try to follow the good in man and not the evil, because our God tells us so.
Western values.
And I would say, I believe that God saved President Trump's life in order to deal with these issues. America's not perfect, but I believe that God wants to use America to spread freedom and tolerance throughout the world. And God willing, Trump will bring us in that direction.
To sum it up, men of the West, unite.
And before we show our last video, because we always end with a great video, this one this week is America the Beautiful by Ray Charles, to remind us all why we love this country, why we love our freedom, and to kind of keep it that way, why we defend it. And to you folks out there, we bring you this question. What do you think America needs to do to avoid this Islamic terrorist takeover? We'd love to hear what you think. Let's start a dialogue, and maybe we can address it. Thank you. Have a great week.
God bless America.
Singing something like this. Listen here. Oh, beautiful, far spacious skies, far amber waves of grain, far purple mountain majesties. Now wait a minute, I'm talking about America, sweet America. You know, God done shed his grace on thee. He crowned thy good. Yes, he did. Heavy brotherhood from sea to shining sea. You know, I wish I had somebody to help me sing this. America, America, I love you, America. You see,